Davido is one of the biggest names in African music, from chart-topping Afropop anthem to global collaborations. His sound has constantly evolved, but he has always kept his raw, energetic and emotional edge that makes him Davido. And we all know that Davido just dropped his new album 5 and he has fully embraced the Amapiano wave. But this isn't just your regular South African groove, it's bigger, louder, and it still feels like the classic Davido. In this video, I'm going to be breaking down what makes Davido's take on Amapiano so unique. I'll show you how I created my own beats inspired by his new sound, from the signature log drums to those bouncy percussions and chant style vocals. I'm going to be showing you how it all comes together. So the first thing I wanted to capture in my beat was that warm melodic rhythm that runs through a lot of the songs on 5. I was especially inspired by tracks like Don't Know, Nothing Day and Be There Still. They all have this soulful emotional vibe, mainly driven by soft, rich chords that sit underneath the vocals without doing too much.
Fuck all the cloud, I'm with my thoughts. I want to have it all, still they find my result. Now God they play.
So I pulled up an E-piano VST and started laying down a chord progression that had the same warm jazzy texture, something simple, repetitive but full of emotion. So the VST that I use is Lounge Lizard. This is an E-piano plugin. So for the preset, I went over to the program and I used the comp preset. I'm just going to show you guys how I came up with this easy and simple but melodic chord progression. So the first thing I did, and this is something I always do to come up with chord progressions, I find it easier to come up with chord progressions when I do this. So I go up to this drop down menu right here and then I go to view, then go to scale highlighting. As you guys can see, we have root note and scale. So for this beat, I use F sharp as my root note, and then for my scale, I use the minor natural alien. And then once you do that, it's just going to automatically apply the root note that you selected, which is F sharp for me, and it's going to automatically show you the notes that are in the scale, which are the white notes, as you guys can see, like this. And then the black ones are the notes that are not in the scale. These are all triad chords. I just inverted the note, and I'm going to show you guys what I mean by inverting notes. So this, if I should take this up, you see that this is a D major triad chord. But then what I just did was to take the top notes, which is the A, down an octave, and I just repeated the bass note, which is D. I repeated it one more time just to give you more depth. And then over here, what we have here, if I should take this up, this is a C sharp minor triad chord. So for this, instead of just bringing the top note down, I actually took the top note and the bottom notes down an octave. And then this over here is just a repetition of the first. This one right here is the same thing, triad chord, just inverted the notes. So this is an E major triad chord. I just inverted the top notes and the bottom notes down an octave. Everything right here that you guys can see, these are all triad chords. I just inverted the notes up or down octaves. So this is what the original version sounds like. And then this is what the inverted version sounds like. It sounds way better when the notes are inverted. It just gives it that warm, really cool feel that I was actually looking for. And then another thing I did is to strum the notes. As you guys can see, all the notes are not on grid. So what I did for that is to use Alt S. It's just going to open up the strumizer, and you can use this time knob right here to strum the notes. And then once you're done, you click accept. I also held Alt R to randomize the velocities. As you guys can see, the velocities are randomized. You use the velocity knob right here to randomize the velocity, and once you're done, you click on accept. So for the effect, guys, the first thing I added is the fruity parameter EQ. I just did some simple low chords, and then the next thing I added is RC20. I used the Vinyl 2 preset, and the only thing I did was just to bring down the distortion a little bit. So yeah, guys, and just like that, the electric piano became the foundation for the rest of the track. So after I added the E-piano, I layered it with the Roland SRS keyboard, and a one-shot pad sound from my Afrology bundle. And together, this is what everything sounds like. So So after laying down the chord progression, I wanted to add something that gave the beat more depth and emotion. That's when I started thinking about how strings were used in songs like Anything and Don't Know. They are not loud or dramatic, but they just add this gentle movement in the background that lifts the entire track. So I added a soft string melody using the SRX orchestra, and inside of this I used the Akko Verse SRX preset. Nothing too complex, just wanted to add something that blends in with the chords and give the beat a fuller, richer atmosphere. And this is what it sounds like. And for real, it's those small melodic textures that help create that emotional, moody feel you hear throughout 5. And I wanted my beat to carry that same vibe. And for the strings, I love the way it sounded, so I only added the Fruity Reverb 2, the default preset, but then I just brought the wet to about 60%. So guys, next up, I wanted to bring in some guitar. And if you listen to Fonz, there's this soft backing guitar that plays throughout most of the track. It is subtle, and it adds rhythm, warmth, and that afro touch that makes the beat feel alive. And same thing for Nothing Day. If you listen to Nothing Day, you'd hear a mellow guitar that just sits in the background, giving the whole track this smooth groove without stealing the spotlight. So for my guitar, I open up Contact and I use the Evolution Hollow Body Blues Bank, and then I just open up the Clean and I use the Soulful Blues preset, and then with that I came up with this simple but catchy backing guitar melody. So if you look closely, you see that I had the velocity of some of the notes very low, and this is just to give it that backing feel. So this is what it sounds like without the volume lowered. But then if you just bring the velocities of each of the first note that are on the grid, it's going to give you that vampy backing guitar feel. But then this isn't going to be sounding the way it sounds right now without some effect. So because I added 2 guitars for this beat, I'm going to be routing 2 of them to a single boss, which is this guitar boss that I created. So I'm just going to be adding the effects here, and it's going to apply to both of them. So the first effect that I added for this is RC20. I used the Lush and Crunch Guitar 2 preset. I turned off the noise, I brought the space down a little bit, and then I added the Talcross LX with the mode I. And finally, I added Valhalla Vintage Verb. I set the mix to 24% and the decay. And then moving on to the next guitar that I actually added a guitar loop, and this is what it sounds like. So together with the chord progression, this is what it sounds like. So I linked this guitar loop to the same guitar boss which I had for the first guitar, but then I still wanted to apply some effect to only this guitar loop. So I went over to the guitar loop and I added Pancake. So basically this is just to pan it from left to right on your speakers or headphones. And then the last thing I added is the Fruity Delay 3. I used the ping pong preset and I set the wet to 33%. So after layering the main instrument, I still felt like the beat still needs something to give it that edge, a kind of spacey, unexpected sound to cut through the softness. That's when I remember the synths in Don't Know and Nothing Day. Come to me, baby, don't waste time. They both use this weird, slightly distorted Lee sound that adds futuristic, moody vibe to the track. So I added the Juno 106 plugin and I used the BT tape plug, and I used this because it wasn't too bright, but it had a bit of character, almost like it's floating on top of the beat. So this is what it sounds like. So for the effect, since I use a synth plugin, it is only right to use the Talcross LX, and for the Talcross LX I use the mode II. And then moving on, the last thing I added is the Valhalla Room. I brought the reverb down to about 33%. So another layer I added to give the beat more vibe was this tremolo effect. I got the inspiration from Fonz. There is this subtle pausing texture in the background that adds movement without being distracting. So to get the tremolo effect, I used Purity and I went over to the slow synth, and over here you see where it says tremolo signal. Use that, and then I just lay down this single note on F sharp, which is root note, and this is what it sounds like. And one thing with this is one of those sounds you don't really notice at first, but it helps the beat feel like it is breathing. So next, I added a bass guitar to really ground the track. I was inspired by the way bass is used in songs like Awuke, Loverboy, and BDS Steel. You'd hear that in those tracks, the bass doesn't just follow the kick, it moves with the chords and adds its own groove.
I go run away from love. Holy sign, fast forward, no rewind.
So I tried to recreate that same vibe, simple plugs that groove with the rhythm but still feel expressive. I also made sure that I sat low in the mix to leave space for everything else. And to get that, I opened up Purity, and I already have a bass preset that I saved. How I got this was just to combine the ANA bass guitar and EB rock finger. Go over to the bass guitar section right here, you see the ANA bass guitar, and over here you see the EB rock finger. So basically for my user preset, I just combined the both of them. So to get the bass, you guys can already see I just followed the root notes of the chord progression that we have. Just to get that plucky rhythm, I had to shorten the notes. So for the bass, I actually loved the way it sounded, but I just needed to beef the bass up a little bit, so I added the decapitator. So I went over to the guitar and I used the beefy G preset, and then just to give the low even more presence, I added a one-shot bass from my Rhapsody Oneshot Kit. So after building the foundation, I knew the beat needed a bit more live, something to give it that human touch. That's when I added vocal chops and chants, inspired by songs like Awuke and Fonz. So if you listen to Awuke, you hear that these chopped vocals are tucked into the groove, and then in Fonz, these vocal chants are more upfront and they really help shape the vibe of the whole beat.
Fire, bro. Oh baby, why not, Joe? I did on my side.
And to lock in that vibe even more, I actually used the same vocal chop that was used in Fonz. And then just like the chopped vocals in Awuke, I also added this. So for the chop vocals, I added ambience. This is a reverb plugin. I set the dry to minus 0.9 dB and I set the wet to minus 9.9 dB. And then the last thing I did is just to add the fruity delay 3. I used the ping pong preset and then I set the wet to about 44%. I layered in a vocal loop. So yeah guys, now that we're done with the whole melody, I think it's time to move on to the drums. So for my drums, I leaned fully into the Amapiano side of Davido's 5 album. My main inspiration came from songs like BDS Steel, CFMF, and Anything.
Holy sign, fast forward, no rewind. When I'm living real life, don't thanks to Jesus. Don't thanks to Jesus. Anything.
So basically for the drums, I started with a solid Amapiano style perc loop. And then after that, I built in a simple but effective kick and percussion pattern. And for the snare, I layered these two snare patterns together. I added the conga, the bongo, toms, and the other percs together. This is what we have. So now let's move on to the log drums. This is where the heartbeat of the Amapiano sound really kicks in. I took a lot of inspiration from tracks like Lately, Don't Know, and Fonz, where the log drums don't just drive the rhythm, but they carry the whole song's energy. So for my beat, I actually layered 4 different types of log drums to really capture that bounce and fullness. First, I added a sub bass type log drum to give it that deep, heavy foundation. Secondly, I layered a primary log drum. This is the main rhythm you hear throughout when the log drums play. Third, I added a secondary log drum to complement the primary and add more movement and flavor. And finally, I threw in a stylish log drum just to be creative and add unexpected swing and texture to the bounce. And I did this because if you listen to Fonts closely, towards the parts where Chike's verse comes in, you dare how they layered the log drums with some kind of like a stick or like a perk sound. That really gave it that high energy and bouncy feel. I wanted to recreate something like that, so I went over to Fruity DX10 and then I customized this particular log drum like this. Layering like this gives the log drums more character and it feels deeper, more musical, and it keeps the beat exciting all through the way. And then there's something interesting I found about log drum, which is this right here. This particular one right here sounds way different than every other one, but then this is what this sounds like. This has a very unique sound compared to every other note that is played. So I found out that for your log drums, especially if you're using the Fruity DX10, what you need to do is once you place your notes on your piano roll, I just hold my Alt key and then I just drag from this point up until I get the last note like this. So as you guys can see, this is the last point at which you can basically shorten your notes. But then with this is what it sounds like. It just sounds way groovier with this. Now that we've broken down every single part, the chords, the bass, the guitar, the drums, and the log drums, let's see how everything comes together. But before I play the full beat for you guys to listen, if you guys enjoyed this video or learned something at least from this video, make sure to go down there, leave a like, and also while you're there, subscribe to the channel and also turn on the post notifications so you don't miss out when I drop videos like this. Do well to let me know your thoughts in the comments. What do you think about this beat? Do you think this rightly suits Davido? Or if you have any questions, leave them down there as well. So that's going to be all today, guys. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. I'm out of here. Peace.